Okay, Craig Smith here, and I'm sitting down with Seph Fontane Pennock, and we're going to dive into another question on meaning from our mailing list. And this one comes from Dr. Boella. And Dr. Boella asks, how can her clients find meaning in the mundane day-to-day living, such as their daily job?
Right, well, this is a great question and something I've been thinking a lot about lately. I even jotted down in my Evernote a couple of days ago an insight that I got, and that is that it's actually super easy to appreciate the extraordinary, right? There's nothing difficult about appreciating or finding meaning in a trip to Hawaii, or in buying a new car, or going out shopping and getting expensive clothes, right? Because it's the extraordinary, of course. That's not your everyday, day-to-day experience. But what is more difficult is to find meaning in the ordinary, in the everyday. So it is by no means easy. That's what I would start out saying. And it's about your perception. And your perception is partly under your control. So I think that's the leverage we have here to solve and get out of this predicament of not appreciating the ordinary anymore. It's like, yes, that's in your hands. You can do something about that. And the way to do something about that is to change your perception of the ordinary things in order to experience them in a different way. I mean, you can go out of bed in the morning and get a cup of coffee purely on automatic behavior, right? Without being aware of it, you just go there, you put some water in the pot, and you make the coffee and you drink it in a mindless way. But you can also perform the same behavior with a sense of appreciation, with a sense of richness and mindfulness, and you'll have a completely different experience. And then you can say, well, yeah, I can't perform the same rituals every day in a completely mindful way. And I would challenge that. I know that the research on mindfulness, of course, and I know that doing things in a more mindful way, that's something that's a skill. You can teach yourself that skill. You can get better and better at it. But before I start rambling on, I wanted to share a cool quote with you. A lot of people will know this quote. It's from Marcel Proust, and he says, "The real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new lands, but in seeing with new eyes." So he is pointing to the same thing. We don't need to chase new experience every day to give our lives a sense of fullness and richness, but it's about the quality of attention we pay to the things that we are doing, whether they are rituals or whether we need to do them every day or not. So the mundane is a subjective label that you put on something, and it's within your control.
I think when you're using the word control there, is it possible what could be causing some of the lack of meaning around work is that they actually feel no control there? So, I mean, it's quite hard work, I think, for a person who's been stuck in a rut for a while, going to the same job and displaying a lot of automatic behavior. That's a lot of hard work for them, I think, to do that. But then using the word control again, they don't have that control of maybe having their own business. They must be there at 9 a.m. in the morning. And could that be a part of the problem? Because I think this is a common question in the inbox, which is why I just come back to it, because it's a beautiful quote from Proust. But it's also a lot of hard work, I think, to wake up in the morning and appreciate that cup of coffee, not just, I've got to get this coffee in so I can get the bus that gets me on the train, that gets me to my job, that I'm just not happy with.
Right. I completely get what you mean, and this is one of the things that we've been talking about in one of the other episodes. There are two resources that you have to invest, right? One of them is time. You get to spend time, and the other one is attention, and you get to pay attention. So spending time and paying attention. And I was talking about the latter one, of course, but how you spend your time is obviously of very great importance to your experience, to how you are experiencing your day-to-day lives. And of course, there are people stuck in jobs, and no matter what kind of mental tricks they use, let's say, to try to and perceive it differently or change their experience, it won't work because it's just very mundane. They don't like it. They don't get to exercise their strengths. And by no means do I want to say like, oh yeah, that's within your control. You can change that by just perceiving it differently. No, but the perception is a part of the equation of experience. Yeah. And the other part is definitely time and how you spend that time. So of course there are people stuck in jobs, and no matter how they try to change their perception, they won't live that full experience that they're looking for. And this reminds me of a quote that I'm taking from the book Embracing the Ordinary, book that I can highly recommend. And it says, for James, and this is William James, for James, fullness was experience. And experience is gained not by travel or adventure or love affairs, but by paying attention. Between brackets, what is called our experience is almost entirely determined by our habits of attention. So he is saying the same thing essentially. He's stressing the importance of attention, what we pay attention to. And the quote goes on saying, James understood that the problem is in the perceiving and not what is perceived. There is always the reality, and there's your perception of reality, and this is what cognitive behavioral therapy focuses on. As well, of course, there's the situation, your interpretation of the situation. So another quote by Rainer Maria Rilke goes as follows: if your daily life seems poor, do not blame it, blame yourself. Tell yourself that you are not poet enough to call forth its riches. For to the Creator there is no poverty, and no poor, indifferent place. And I thought that's a beautiful quote and very applicable here.
Yeah, absolutely.